Welcome back into the DiME podcast for the current FTT student, the past FTT student, the future FTT student, and of course, people that just like media. I'm Jacob Irons, I'm your host, and we're sitting down with the always hilarious Conor Hanney, who's a writer, lyricist, composer. He's done it all within the TV industry with writing television, and then also does what he even alluded to, improv on steroids with musical improv. We're talking about all that and more coming up on the DiME podcast. We welcome you in for another episode of the DiME podcast alongside Conor Hanney, who's a writer, lyricist, and composer. And then our student guest is one of my good friends, Olivia Seymour, FTT, film concentration, and then musical theory minor. Guys, thanks for coming on the DiME podcast, doing this again, starting to really try and work out all the kinks.
Of course, thanks for having us. Glad to be your guinea pigs.
Yeah, well, of course, we got to try it on someone here. So let's start with the basic question. I think this is always like the Notre Dame question of how did you come to Notre Dame? And it's a perfect question for both the student guest and our professional guest.
For me, both my parents went to Notre Dame, so it was always kind of a school that I knew I wanted to go to. I've visited many times as a child, and it's always just very much felt like home. As I grew up, I got really into theater and really fell in love with acting and writing. And I looked into some of the, bigger BFA programs and applied everywhere, auditioned everywhere, and ultimately decided that this was where I wanted to be. And this was the one that stuck out the most as home. So I'm really, really happy to be here.
Conor, for you?
Yeah. I almost did not apply. I was a big Notre Dame football fan. I grew up in Florida, in Jacksonville, Florida, and just inexplicably, like a non-legacy football fan, like middle school, and then sort of dropped off after the Bush push, and then wasn't really a fan in high school. And then it was like the day before applications were due. My dad was like, come on, you always like the team, just throw your hat in the ring, apply. So I did, and then came and visited during Green Gold Week, and it was like the one good weekend of weather on campus, and it fooled me. And so then I was here, but I enjoyed it, and I wouldn't trade it. I don't use my degree, but I loved it.
And then, so on the degree aspect, how would you say FTT brought you to where you are today? And then how did you discern FTT?
Sure. Well, I should clarify. I don't use my finance degree.
Yeah, I assumed it was the finance degree, but
sure. The degree I came here for, I do not use. The FTT degree though, I do, because I now write professionally. So I write TV, and that's the main hustle, and then also some theater stuff and some book stuff and some music stuff. But
yeah, acting and writing were the two things that I really, really loved. So I came in thinking I was going to be FTT in English. And I just totally fell in love with FTT, and I wanted to do a few minors as well. So I didn't end up doing the English major, but FTT kind of lets me do everything. So I've taken screenwriting classes, playwriting classes. I'm in a class right now that we're writing musicals. So it's crazy.
Are you doing the MT minor? Is that?
Yeah.
That's so, I wish we had that. We didn't have that.
It's new. It's really new. I think
So tell us a little bit about what the musical minor is, and then how that came, how you found it part of your journey.
I think the musical theater minor just got started. It's really recent, maybe 8 years ago or something like that. It was a few years before my time. But it's growing really fast. It's pumping out some really cool new works too. We did a student written musical last year, Dawn's Early Light, which will go places, believe me. But that was really cool. And I'm in a class right now where it's the musical theater lab class, and we are writing musicals in that class. And it's unlike anything I've ever done. It's always something I kind of thought about, but never thought I'd have the chance to try. And it's so you basically, there's no really, there's not a strict curriculum, other than a book that we had to read about, the standard musical, but it's all over the place, and you can pretty much choose whatever niche you want to do. It's really cool.
And for you, Conor, you have to imagine this would, if you were here, had that opportunity, you now live a lot in that musical world as well.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'd have loved that. and I would have loved having not a strict curriculum. That sounds great. Do whatever you want. Yeah, I write musicals on the side. Some stuff for folks with cognitive disabilities. I work a lot with the IDD community. But that was all just sort of self-taught when I got out to LA. Sort of a product of what I like so much about theater, and I did improv and stand up here on campus. But what I dug was that we'll have these long several year long horizons for if you're writing a feature to ever see it on the screen, if you do, or and TV could be a while before you develop something and get it greenlit and something that you created be on the air. And but theater, you can like self-produce, and I could write a show over the winter and then rehearse it the beginning of next year and have it up for like a fringe festival and do it for like a pretty like cheap budget. And but wait, the great girl that you guys have that program now, and wish I had it when I was here.
And then a little bit on the lines, talk us through everything that goes into, from what you've been able to see, the theater aspect. You're not just this, like you talked about, you write TV for the day job, but then you also have this little passion of theater and musical improv as well. Like I can only imagine is like improv on steroids, because you bring that next level of trying to improvise music and like singing and dancing all within it as well.
Sure. Yeah. It's improv and steroids insofar as it should be illegal. It's not. It has a very high ceiling when done well, but very low floor if done poorly. Yeah. I've been doing improvised musicals out in LA for like the last 8 years or so. We got a team called the Sound of Musical. We just had our 175th show this past Saturday, but started improvising those musicals here at the Wash Hall Black Box too. There was a really cool rector at Lions, and she rocked, like studied at like improv in Chicago and musical improv there, and taught us it here, and grateful for that too. A lot of just weird hodgepodgey Notre Dame experiences that I can trace current things back to, but you guys seem to have like such a better systematic approach to it right now.
And one thing that you can somewhat hold on to here at Notre Dame is how you got started into writing television.
Mm-hmm.
And that's through a thesis you wrote for Chris Becker, and how you got a little bit of an in with Disney and all that.
Yeah, you guys have done so much research.
Well, we try to make sure that we're informed.
I don't know how anyone knows this stuff. My thesis was on writing live action multicam half hour for the comedies for the 6 to 11, 6 to 14 demo. And so it's just like this very hyper specific niche. Yeah, I grew up, in like the golden age of Disney and Nick shows, and then writing for folks with cognitive disabilities, but I worked at this camp back in Florida, and their biological age would be anywhere from like 5 to 65, our campers, but cognitively typically no older than 9 or so, which is like 4th grade reading level, right in the middle of that 6 to 11 demo. And so I'm on campus now shooting with this actress that I work with, Kaylee, and she's just a big fan of Disney and Nick shows, like until the day she dies. Like we were on the train on the way over here, and she was searching like Helga Pataki, like Hey Arnold memes, and I'm like, oh, that's a great demo to write for. And so that sort of all contributed to writing for the 6 to 11 demo. Doing that thesis, Professor Becker like hooked me up with like a university contact, and so just doing one specific, even though I wasn't studying writing or that demo, the university was definitely able to help out a lot. Grateful for that as well, and for Becker.
And you talk about writing a thesis. This is something that it's a big undertaking, especially within FTT, because you have to write a show Bible, and then you also have to have a little bit of that hands-on pilot script for you as well. So what would be your pitch to write a thesis right now to students that are maybe even like Olivia that are thinking about doing it and having that conversation within their own heads about it's a lot of work, but it can prove to be successful if you do it right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, along the same lines as, the classes that you dig that don't have much in terms of like strict curriculum, like thesis is the ultimate manifestation of that. You can sort of do it on whatever you want, like however useful or useless, like you get to be the sort of the arbiter of that. And I mean, I'm all for, I've done some the FTT talks here on campus for TED, and the drum I keep beating over and over is just, specify, zoom in as much as you can, like decrease the amount of area that you're targeting so you can apply the most pressure to the industry. And if you know better way to get as specific as possible than with a thesis. And then, I don't know if they still do them, but I got like a grant through the Career Center to like go and study. So you can, the thesis was sort of like the justification and onus from that though.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For you, Olivia, where does thesis sit? Is it on the mind, or is it something that's very much just a little bit too far in the distance once you get a junior here in the fall?
No, it's definitely something I've been considering. Yeah. I'm trying to kind of figure out what I want to do as like my big final project, and if that is a thesis. I know there's a musical theater capstone we have to do to complete the minor, that can basically be anything as long as we, get it approved and have an advisor on it. But I've been really looking into directing a show for my capstone. I'm directing a show right now. It's really fun and rewarding, and so I'm kind of looking to do something bigger.
What's that show?
I'm directing Tuck Everlasting right now. Yeah, it's really fun.
Is that a play or a musical?
It's a musical. We're doing it in Wash Hall. It's really fun. But I'm kind of looking at something bigger for next year and doing it as part of FTT, and making a big statement out of it and making that my capstone. So we'll see where it ends up. But big project to kind of round off my time here. That's definitely on the mind.
Do you have a least favorite musical of all time? So am I allowed to ask questions?
Oh, yes, please do. I'm just supposed to sit here.
I feel like I have to say Cats.
Okay.
Because I don't know if it's least favorite. I don't know if I have a reason for hating it. It's just like there's all these musicals and you could put them in different categories, and then there's Cats.
Sure.
And like it's its own category, and it just exists out there, and I don't know what it is.
It's in my top 10.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love Andrew Lloyd
Webber. List of like 135, and it's one of the best worst things I've ever seen.
Yeah, like I feel like you either love it or you hate it, and it's
I do. I both though.
Yeah.
To quote Professor Kackman, you study stuff that you both hate and both love. But is there a musical that right now that you're like, not for me?
My least favorite of all time is The Bodyguard, the musical, which is like, I think it's like adapted from that Kevin Costner movie.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's really trash. There was like they had like this big dramatic like gunshot death scene towards the end, and like the whole the Pantages, this massive theater in LA, like everyone started laughing, like and it wasn't ironic, it was just like the opposite reaction of what they were going for.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then also bottom 3, Escape to Margaritaville, the Jimmy Buffett musical, which is I think is the musical that started COVID.
Wow.
That's valid.
Yeah.
There's so when you yourself are sitting trying to figure out what's going to make a good musical, how do you come to that? Because as we've just talked about, there are duds out there. You talk about Jimmy Buffett, just doesn't come over to musicals that well.
Sure. The stuff I write is like sort of all original music, just because I can't afford the licensing rights. But I don't know, like I'm working on this one that will hopefully like have a off-Broadway tryout in Nashville next fall. It's like a musical horror comedy that I'm excited about. I don't know, just interested in like pushing the form, trying stuff. I saw there's this really cool play, 222 A Ghost Story, that like elicited like reactions from audiences that I hadn't seen. Like people were like gasping and jump scaring in their seats, and I'm like, oh, if we could do that in musical, that'd be awesome. Like a little shop that's like actually scary, but also funny. I don't know, might not work. People might hate it, but I can try stuff now. I don't have kids or a family. I can roll the dice on odd passion projects.
And you bring up a great point of the fact you can try different things, and for you, Olivia, that's the beauty of being young and having that opportunity, is being able to try different things out and poke. So would you give any advice to Olivia or musical theater people that are just like, try it? Is that like the big advice that you would say? Just find what sticks, and then if it sticks, great. If it doesn't, just keep keep probing it?
Yeah, for sure. For now, I mean, like especially when your bills ostensibly are low. But and then also too, that I recommend jumping into the fringe scenes and like I'm in LA right now, and it's the second biggest fringe festival in the world. It's by order of magnitude. Literally, it's like we have 400 shows. Edinburgh has like 4,000, but even so, it's like I did 1 year where I produced 9 shows, and yeah, some worked well, some didn't. We had like 3 that were supposed to go off Broadway March 28th, 2020, and then all got COVIDed. But yeah, see what sticks. It'll be like a low percentage, but yeah, it'll be fun in the meantime. Throw stuff at the wall.
Is there anything that you're like thinking about that you could throw at the wall right now that you would like to?
Well, that's kind of the big theme of the class that I'm in right now,
Okay.
because we read a book about like the standard American musical and like, what it takes to make something, like all the golden age musicals that were really successful. Why were they successful? And so we kind of started with that basis, but then our professor, Matt Hawkins, he was like, take that if you want it, throw it out completely if you don't like it. Write what you know and write what you want. And I started out with like an idea for a musical, and I kind of realized halfway through that it lended itself more to be a play than a musical. And I was like,
What was it?
It was about 3 sisters who go through they experience like the death of their mother at the same time, and they're all kind of at different stages of life, and it's like them coming back to the house. And I just like, that was more of like a play
Not a lot
structure.
of music
Yeah,
that.
and it just felt like it was like a very stationary piece.
Okay.
But I came up with something completely different, like on a whim, randomly one day. And I went to Matt and I was like, I have this other idea, and I don't want to like abandon the first one, but also like I'm spouting out a lot of ideas for this one. And he was like, listen, if the little magical art fairy has hit you on the head, you should probably listen to her. And I was like, okay. So I'm going with that now. It's just like, this class is so collaborative, and we get a lot of ideas from people, and it's very much take what you want, leave what you want. And we're throwing stuff at the wall, but it's really cool.
And would you say that's helped your development overall, that you think it will pay dividends? Like, you have a professor that's very much under, like, just literally quoted a arts fairy and just was like, throw
I think it's really special to have something like that, where you can have a structure if you want it, and you can also just not listen to it at all and find what you think works. And yeah, it's been a really interesting class to take, and I'm loving it.
I'd be interested to hear from both of you about the statement of what works, because it's so diverse, especially in art and in FTT and what many people do. Is there a singular thing that you can cross tie to everything that it says it works because of this, that really allows it to, once again, it's a tough question to answer, understand, because there's such a diverse elements of films, television, and theater. But is there a finite item, especially for you, Connor, who's been in the industry a little bit and seen what has taken off? Is there a singular thing that you think defines what makes it work?
Well, if you're defining it works by like what sells or what resonates, I don't know. My old boss, Katie O'Connell Marsh, is a Notre Dame alum. I was working for in development at DreamWorks back in like 2016. But she had a great piece of advice that I've remembered now for the last 7 years, which is that we can't dictate the market. Like it's always going to be a moving target. All we can really control is what we do right now, and that what we do right now is what we believe in and just our taste. And like I interpreted that as just like putting your absolute best foot straight forward, like a very powerful vector in whatever direction you believe is best, and then as opposed to trying to like waggle and dissipate that magnitude and like in an attempt to hit a target that will always be moving, and then eventually the market will align or it won't, and you'll learn from it and you'll move on.
Anything for you from an undergraduate point of view? But
yeah, I've been looking at kind of like what I want the work that I create to do. And I think it's really hard to narrow it down to like one thing that makes something work, right? But my big thing is that I really want whatever I make to mean something to people. And so I think if like the sign to me
That's
that
a lot
it
more
works,
noble. That's a lot more.
the sign to me that it works is if somebody walks out of something that I made and thinks about the world a little bit differently. And so like that's like my big, I want people to see themselves in something, to be changed, to bring it with them as they move forward.
I just want people to not want their money back.
Is that because you're in two different stages of your life, you think, that it's very much like you got to do this for a job? There's at the end of the day, there's got to be a little bit of money coming through.
I mean, I'm being, I'd also like that as well, but it's just like at a bare minimum, like, you know, have them come to a show and like enjoy it more than the value of the ticket, or just as much as the ticket.
You touched upon your DreamWorks venture.
Yeah.
You've moved around a lot in your career between different employers. What is it like? I know Olivia had this question of how do you switch between all these different companies, because every company has different practices.
Because the companies either like get rid of you, or the shows don't get renewed, or it's not necessarily by design. It's like, you know, I started off at Disney, but it's like, you know, that's kind of a misnomer because I'm like on shows that like are umbrellaed under Disney. And so like I'll, you know, work for a season of a show, but then had this offer from Katie to go work at DreamWorks, did that for a year, and we got acquired by Comcast and bopped out of there after a year. And then I was on like a string of Netflix shows, but like I was at Netflix for a long period of time, but that was really just like by virtue of going from one show to another that just like kept getting canceled and kept getting canceled. So yeah, it's more so by necessity than by design. I don't have like this master plan to like check off every studio. It's just I going where the work is and where the people I know are that will hire me.
Yeah, it's the common theme within the industry at the moment. But then, what is it like doing that massive turnover? Because I have to imagine, like, you go to is there something that's similar between every project you've worked on that's you're like, okay, this feels a little similar, before everything being a little alienated?
I'm at like a pretty low level still in my career, which is like, you know, interesting to say a decade or so out. But so I'm not like necessarily seeking them for the for like a common theme, or like, oh, I worked on that. They are just a lot of them happen to be kid shows, and you know, I like we'll have some experience in multicam, some experience in single cam, and that'll like parlay into another similar job. It's like some shows will be musicals, some won't be, but it's really just I guess maybe the common thread are just like people that I like working with, because it'll either be like one job will get another by virtue of like you know, a common exec that's on there, or a common showrunner, or one other writer. So it's just you can't really go wrong following good people. Katie had another great piece of advice that I loved, which was, and paraphrasing, but she was like, you know, even if 75% of the industry are like a-holes, like bad people that you don't want to work with, like that leaves 25% that are like awesome and great working with. And like, you know, like life is too short, and like this industry is too big to ever work with people that you don't want to be working with. And so been very fortunate that I've like, never really had but one like abusive job situation, which, you know, is not something a lot of people can say.
Yeah. And so as we start to wind down on the episode, we always finish off with, for both guests, what advice would you give to aspiring filmmakers, composers, writers, lyricists about that you've learned in your career, and then Olivia, for you just being an upper class person in FTT and having that ability?
I would say write what you know. And yeah, that's like my biggest thing that I've learned, I think, is that anything that kind of stems off of your own personal experience, not even necessarily like, you know, word for word or anything like that, but something that you have felt before, it's going to translate a lot more to other people.
Anything for you?
Yeah. Well, a couple things. I mean, I alluded to the focus as much as
Yeah.
possible, be as specific as possible. That goes to like
Yeah.
the pressure analogy that I bring up to anyone that will listen at any point in time. But it's like, right, there's this misconception that force is the thing that like pierces a membrane and like breaks us into wherever we're trying to go into, but like it's really the phenomenon in physics of pressure, right? And pressure is force over area. So it's like we could like attack the numerator and like, you know, kill ourselves not sleeping and reading every script, and but that leads to like burnout and resent.
Yeah.
Or you could attack the denominator, make that like as minuscule as possible, skyrocket pressure, and then, you know, that's how you make the knife as sharp as possible to cut the steak. And then the other piece of advice, would be to just like literally count the number of hours that you're doing the thing you want to be doing and track it over time. So like I started doing this a few years ago. I wish I started doing it right when I got out of school. I wish I started doing it in undergrad. Literal like these sticker charts on Amazon that are like $11. They give you like whatever 12 sticker charts. They give you tactile stickers, and you can just like literally write out every day and the thing you want to be doing. If you want to be writing most, great. If you want to be acting most, great. Truly, whatever it is you want to be doing, and count the number of hours that you do that every day, like add it up per week, per month, track it over time. And like, I mean, I'm not saying you need like a Gladwell, like 10,000 hours, but you like it's like astounding how little like I'll write if I'm not paying attention to it. But just like that literal accountability, because it's like, you know, if we like if I treat it like a trade, right? If I wanted to be like a blacksmith, like I couldn't just like not smith things. Like I would need to practice hammering things, right? And for a lot of time. So like writing is a craft, acting is a craft, and like the notion that we can just like, you know, you might be like, you know, biologically predisposed to be slightly better at it and slightly more creative. Like, you know, someone taller, like it's easier for them to dunk, but like to then be a good basketball player, to be a good writer, like you need to practice a ton. And so literally just count it and track it and then increase it over time, and then you will inevitably get better.
Practice makes perfect.
Yep.
Got all of it. Thank you guys for sitting down with us, being our guinea pigs on this
Of course.
DiME podcast episode.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. That wraps up the DiME podcast.
Yeah.